What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. In last week's video, I mentioned that my whole week was thrown off my game for various reasons, and I'm here yet again with my game thrown off 2 weeks in a row, this time because someone in my household has COVID. They're okay and recovering, but my whole routine's been thrown off. I'm filming from home this week, thus the change of background, and for anyone who's been following me for a while, do you remember this little throwback here? This is where it lives now. But even though I've needed to pivot yet again from the video that I had planned, I think there's actually a nice opportunity here because I would really like to chit chat with you about some of the changes that I have going on with private practice skills, both so I can be transparent with you, but also because I think there's something to be said about businesses in general, in order to stay successful, kind of have to be open to continuing to pivot, and that includes private practice. So today we're going to talk about how scary it is to change your focus, but maybe also how it could be helpful to allow yourself to change your focus. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about changing focus is because for me, there's been something that's been weighing on my mind more and more over the last several months. I'm not as relevant to my audience as I used to be. I know, it's not easy to say. When I started Private Practice Skills in 2018, I had started my own private practice 3 different times since 2012. And at that point in time, my sole source of income came from seeing my private practice clients. So as a channel completely dedicated to teaching folks how to start and grow a private practice, I felt like what I had to offer was completely relevant because I was teaching all the tools that I was actively implementing in my own business at the time. I believe that this relevancy continued to follow me for a while, particularly when the pandemic hit and we all needed to pivot into figuring out what to do with our practices as a result, and I made a whole bunch of content at that time related to converting to a virtual practice. And then right around the end of 2020 or so, something started to change because I started earning more income from private practice skills than I was through my therapy practice itself. I was also working extremely part-time, largely due to the pandemic, and at that point, not really having access to any childcare. So I was at home with my infant almost all the time. But even then, I felt like I was only just like a degree or 2 away from what I was teaching. A lot of what was going on felt really temporary as well, and many of the tools that apply to private practice skills apply to a therapy practice as well. For example, knowing how to build a brand as well as SEO, which I've used to grow both my therapy practice and private practice skills. So I felt like I was overall relevant even when my private practice skills income started going up. But just in the last 6 months or so, I'm starting to really realize that I'm becoming less and less relevant when it comes to private practice. Primarily because enough people know me because of private practice skills that even though I'm putting literally 0 energy into marketing my therapy practice, it's always full right now. Not only am I no longer needing to market my therapy practice in order to be full, I'm also noticing that people's perceptions of me are changing as well. And I think rightly so. I mean, just in the comments section alone, there's people making references to, how I'm an influencer now, whatever that means, and how that is becoming so much more of how people see me than, say, private practice owner. And so even though when I look at my weekly schedule and I'm dividing my time 50-50 between seeing therapy clients in my practice and doing business matters related to private practice skills, the therapy practice itself is feeling fairly passive. It kind of runs itself, and I'm directing a lot more of my active energy into private practice skills. So in that sense, I'm also feeling like I'm just losing relevance both within myself and people's eyes as far as being a private practice owner. Now, with all of this said, I don't at all believe that the entire scene of starting and growing a private practice has done like a complete 180 in the last 2 years or so. I mean, I think there's enough things to support that the things that I was teaching 2 years ago about starting and growing a private practice are still incredibly relevant. But I'm also aware that eventually these practices will become outdated. It's just a matter of how long until they become outdated. And it's very possible that as long as folks kind of know who I am within the field, I may never need to evolve and figure out what the new marketing practices are for private practice if I'm just getting referrals in these sort of less conventional ways. In other words, it's entirely possible that I may never really be relevant again as far as what it's like to be a private practice owner. That's really wild for me to wrap my head around and acknowledge. And beyond all the things I've already mentioned so far, I believe there are still additional ways that I'm losing relevancy. Because of the reliable passive income that private practice skills is generating, there's no pressure on my therapy practice itself to generate income at all, really. And while this is a huge gift for me personally, I'm also fully aware how unrelatable what I just said is to the average therapist running their own private practice who's absolutely depending on that income in order to pay their bills. And though that was true about me at a time in the past, it's no longer my present experience. And so it's inevitable that I'm gonna just start to kind of like not feel so relevant anymore to the average therapist's experience in private practice. And so coming back to the whole topic of this video, in the midst of all of this and becoming aware of how I'm losing relevancy as a private practice owner, it's necessitated an acceptance of needing to make a shift in focus for private practice skills. If you've been following along with my videos, then you may even have noticed already that I've gradually been changing the direction of my channel overall. And so here are a few reasons why I think it's important that I accept and make this change in focus. The most important reason to me is to stay authentic. I do not do well running anything feeling inauthentic. So if I feel like I'm not very good at something, but I'm pretending to be good at it, or if I'm just not really interested in something, but I'm trying to make content around it anyway, I burn out real quick. So it's very important to me to pivot as whatever is authentic to me is pivoting as well. The second reason why I need to accept a change in focus is to stay relevant. Now, as much as I think the tools I'm teaching right now about starting and growing a private practice are absolutely relevant today, there will come a day when they become outdated. I remember when I first moved into my last office in 2017, I met an elderly gentleman who was working in the same building, and I remember he gave me some very sage wisdom. He said, "Make sure you get your practice listed in the yellow pages." And I remember just thinking, wow, he really believes that that's a good idea. Even though in follow-up he said, yeah, it's really weird. I'm just not getting very many clients from the yellow pages like I used to in the good old days. You know, like in the 80s. Now, though I'm fully aware that teaching about branding and SEO are still relevant, it's not like trying to tell someone to get listed in the yellow pages. There will eventually come a day where it does kind of feel a little silly like that. And because I'm not so closely connected with all that goes on in running a private practice, I need to make pivots in order to stay relevant. And another important reason why I think I need to change focus is to model the value of pivoting. And this is the main reason why I decided to film this video, because I could have just done all this stuff behind the scenes and not told you about it. If you're running a business, in order to have the longevity of success over years and decades and potentially an entire career, you have to be flexible to pivot, to change your focus. And this is true for you if you're in private practice as well. Sometimes it might look like pivoting with the times, like the example I just gave about the yellow pages, where something that might have been working to market your practice, 10 or 20 years ago may have almost no relevance today, but it also might look like making pivots with yourself as you evolve as a human, particularly in our profession as therapists, where who we are influences our work so much. So the point I'm wanting to make in this video is that if you're feeling some pull to make a pivot in your business, you can. It's modeling healthy choices for those of us who are watching us make those changes, and it's also allowing our businesses to be more sustainable for us. So going forward, you'll likely see me experimenting with different areas of focus. Some might be awesome, some might be a total flop, and of course, I will still be focusing on private practice content as well, just the way that I go about it might look a little different. So if you've been feeling like some area of your practice just isn't working in general or isn't really fitting with you anymore, I hope this video gives you permission to explore that further and, if needed, to gently make some changes. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. Therapy Notes is a comprehensive practice management system. They can help you with notes, billing, they have a HIPAA-secured telehealth platform, and so much more. If you'd like to check out Therapy Notes, but you're not so sure yet if you want to be all in, you could get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. And if you made it to this point in the video, thank you for listening to my story. I realize it's a bit of a kind of story time chit-chat video, but I also hope that you drew some sense of inspiration and encouragement from the video as well. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.